Welcome to the High Pressure Podcast with me, George Ratermann.
And me, Marie Williams. Brought to you by Reliably Ratermann.
Bringing you industry news and trends.
Plus, insightful conversations with industry leaders.
Let's get to today's show.
Welcome back to another Solution Center on the High Pressure Podcast. I am very excited to announce that the co-host, or maybe the lead host, I guess I'm the co-host, is back.
Oh boy.
Round of applause. We have George Ratermann in the house. Welcome, George. How's it feel to be back?
Oh my gosh, it feels really, really good. I was tap dancing a little while ago. It was exciting to be back.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a beautiful dance.
It was, yep.
Okay, well, for this Solution Center, we are going to answer questions about sizing a microbulk. And if you haven't joined a Solution Center before, these are short episodes where we dive into a customer question that we get frequently. And then we bring on Ratermann experts to answer those questions. So here we have George Ratermann, who's quite the expert. We also have Greg Richardson and Craig Pagano on. So welcome, everybody.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's dive into the question of today, which is understanding how to size a microbulk. I believe the title of this episode is Mastering Microbulk, Sizing the Perfect Arctic Fox Microbulk Tank. So we have a lot to cover here. Let's start by explaining how the proper sizing ensures efficiency, safety, and cost effectiveness.
So, as far as mastering the size of a microbulk, one of the first things I would, if I was standing in front of the customer, I'd say, what is that? What is the application? Is it a liquid application or is it a gas application? And they might say it's a gas application. It's for a laser. Okay. Knowing that up front. So we're talking a pure gas application. And then my next time, what's your duration of runtime? How, are you running one shift, two shifts, three shifts? What is the flow? Right. So we get obviously we got to gather all the data, get all the information. And then you can determine then as a distributor, I would say, okay, I would look at my radius. Typically, when you size a microbulk tank, you typically size one fill a month is what you're shooting. Maybe every 3 to 4 weeks is what the optimum time to fill a microbulk tank is. Okay. And then you got to look at, how far is this customer out? What's the radius of delivery? And so really that, starting there is the starting point to really say, okay, it's a gas application. No, I only have one laser. Okay, Mr. Customer, is there any thought that you might add a second laser? Well, yeah, we're thinking, once we get up and we make some money, we're going to add a second laser. Okay. So you take all that into the equation and you calculate, okay, you're only running one shift right now, but maybe you're going to go to two shifts. So particularly we've already got the numbers for the runtime, and then you can calculate, basically how many standard cubic feet of gas that they're going to need. How many weeks is that going to last for? And then you can typically size it into either our 1,500 liter, or 2,000 liter, or 3,000, or 6,000, or 7,500, or 8,100 liter. And that's how typically we come to size a tank. It's really based off of, any customer potential growth, runtime, duration of runtime, and delivery radius.
One of the really nice things, Greg, is the fact that on the Arctic Fox tank, being that it's on a large pallet, the nice thing is if somebody needs to increase the size, you can really change out a tank as a customer grows. So if they grow out of a 3,000, they can grow into the 6,000, and you can do a change out. And also sometimes people will do sizing where they'll put in dual tanks, so they always have duplicity, and they'll have two tanks. And so maybe you need 6,000 liters, but you'll put 2 3,000s in. That allows you, if one tank is being in operation and you fill the other tank, you're not collapsing the pressure, and it's continuous use. There's no disruption. And also there's a duplicity of all the components. So that for really critical applications is a great way to go as well. So there's just a lot of really good things you can do relative to the sizing and your application.
Absolutely, George. That's one of the big things. We have a customer right now that we're working with that's looking at putting two 8100s in side by side because of the volume, the requirements of the gas. One of the big things is that customer's really excited about. If anybody's ever put a full size bulk tank in, knows what an engineered pad cost, right?
Yes, right.
With our Arctic Fox microbulk tanks, you can get across, standard concrete, 6.5-inch concrete with, you can set two side by side without having an engineered pad on it. And you can bolt, we have in our base plate, we have bolt down holes that you can anchor the pad to the concrete and go with a couple simple connections. That customer's up and running.
Right. Yeah. And what's also great about the tank is it really has everything pre-plumbed, whether you're going to go telemetry into it. It's already pre-plumbed. If you want to be able to bring liquid out and have a higher flows, that's able to be done. There's all the connections for going into a final line into pressure. And then we also have a LSAP, LTAP that allows you to know if there's a problem with a pipe breaking, it would automatically shut down. It's a non-electronically operated system. So there's a lot of really great things that can tie into the Arctic Fox tank as well when you do the sizing of the tank and the application of it.
Right. Correct. And and with a lot of people too, let's say, after they do 28100s, they, and some people outgrow their building. They can pick up those two tanks, George, and take them to the next building and be up and running within less than a day, probably some people, because you're breaking a simple connection, and people do outgrow their production facilities and stuff. And so no more engineered pads. They can drop. We have one customer, as you know, George, he's put 3 6,000s together. So
yeah,
and
I think that's a really great point, even for distributors. Sometimes customers move out of town altogether, or they shut down, whatever might be going to happen, and to know that you can really very easily remove that tank from that facility and not have all the ongoing expense you have to, or if you're going to put an installation when you're sizing a tank. I like to say this too: if you're sizing a tank, a lot of times, as you just said, Craig, you would have to build into that what the cost would be, and you could be spending $50,000 trying to get just the right kind of pad put in and all the things requirements, and that would have to be part of your return on investment. You'd have to build into that. Where here, that might make it so you have to go over a 5-year period of time or something, and where here you don't have that. So it allows you to look at customers that you wouldn't necessarily be able to maybe cost justify the overall cost for sizing a tank into their facility.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I'd like to add one comment onto that is that, that's in listening to this conversation, there's a sort of a flexibility that's built in with using the Microbulk tanks. And sometimes when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're looking forward into the future and you're looking for, growth plans, and maybe they don't know, maybe they don't quite know how big they can get, and having that flexibility and having those options available where they wouldn't be with a standard bulk tank, it opens a lot of doors.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Absolutely. So let's get into the common pitfalls of undersizing a microbulk tank and oversizing a microbulk tank.
So I would say with undersizing a tank, what you're putting at risk is you're subjecting yourself to frequent refills, like to the point you made a little bit earlier, having that 3 to 4 week window where those are your fill times. When you undersize your tank, you're having to come in there more often, and with that comes a few set of challenges, right? Obviously, you're going to get possibly higher costs. More deliveries equals more gas charges, and maybe there's fuel charges that get passed on to the customer. So that's a whole unique thing in itself. And then when you undersize a tank, that another complication that comes along with that would be that you're leaving room for unplanned events, right? So you could have things like employees that are out sick, or you have holidays, extended weekends, weather delays, things like those. And so when you undersize a tank, you leave sort of unpredictability with those things. They come into play when you undersize the tank, and sometimes those are very difficult to overcome.
Yeah, Greg, that's a great point. I mean, the confidence people want they want their equipment up and running, welding shops, pharmaceutical, whatever it might be. They want to know that supply is going to be continuous and not have interruptions. So that's a really good point, that you could put a little more strain on that, or potentially if something, went on, if they're doing a couple shifts or the night shifts running, they could find themselves in a really, really difficult spot and possibly a shutdown, which we know that we want customers never to have shutdowns.
Absolutely. Now, with the flip side of that, right, Greg, would be if someone oversizes a tank, right? I've had that situation too before. So where a distributor came in and they earned the business from the incumbent distributor, and they sized a tank, and it was oversized. And meaning it was oversized is they went from a 3,000 liter tank to a 6,000 liter tank. And what happened there, it was too much at one time. So what happens with that in cryogenic world, we say either you use it or you lose it, because we go from a liquid phase to a gas phase, when a mode of change there. It's going to boil off. Something that, I would say a liquid nitrogen at minus 320 degrees F. It has, every tank, every manufacturer has something what's called an NER factor, which is normal evaporation rate. And, typically the liquid's going from a liquid phase to a gas phase. And if you don't use it, it just reverberates in the tank until it hits the main safeties and it blows down, does what the tank's supposed to do. So even though when you have a tank that now you're specifically have a tank that's oversized and you're not using it because production's low or it was oversized altogether, now you get something that's called oversaturation of liquid. When you oversaturate liquid, it becomes to the point where it doesn't matter if you're still using it, it's still going to blow off because the saturation of the liquid is so saturated with the pressure at the tank. And these are, all the Arctic Fox tank come as a standard 500 VHP, very high pressure tank. So you'll have to blow down let's say this tank happened to be, in fact, it was a 6,000 liter tank. And so what you have to do is blow it down all the way to zero and have a restarting point of zero pressure again. It re-puts it back to a set point. And then again, you're going to have, it's not a matter if, you will still have the problem if you're not using it. That's the pitfalls of oversizing a tank. If you're not using it on a regular basis, drawing off the head, using the gas off of it and constantly rebuilding, it's going to oversaturate and it's just going to blow off and it's going to frustrate, the customer.
Yeah. In addition to that, I would say that, the other thing that probably gets overlooked is in that scenario, you're going to have the wear and tear on the safeties in those components because you're overworking them. It's like redlining a car engine.
Well, I think a great thing about the Arctic Fox tank is how easy it is to redeploy out to the field. So as somebody does grow, you can do a change out from a 3,000 to a 6,000, or, these are long-term investments. These things are going to pay off for you for years. So you can buy the larger tank, and as a customer grows into it, it's a safety net. You might spend a little bit more. It's exponentially not the same. You spend a little bit more to go to 6,000 to 3,000, but that's there as an asset for you as a distributor that you can redeploy in many, many applications.
Absolutely. Just because you pull it out of there, we have a lot of people that, they grow, right? They go from a 3,000 and it's like, oh, wow, business took off. It's okay. Like George said, you drop one single connection at that point. They come in, obviously the tank's drained. They come in with a crane, they hook it up, fly it out of there. And within minutes, they have the truck already in the parking lot. They make a single connection, George, and they're back up and running. It's how phenomenal that is. So,
yeah, it's a very easy tank to install.
Yes.
All right. So on to the next segment, which is sizing a tank for specific applications. We do have that as a downloadable content on our website. Our blog website is rmimfg.com. And you can even just Google search, how to size a Microbulk tank and put Ratermann in there and it'll pop right up. So let's get into the details of how to properly size a tank. What factors should customers consider to make sure they're getting the perfect fit?
Sizing the correct Microbulk tank probably has a lot of variables in it. And there's a lot of different ways you can go with this. But in my mind, I would summarize and say it probably boils down to three keys. There's three key points to, proper sizing. The first one is going to be assess your footprint, right? What's the footprint size you need? At the facility, how much room do you have? Number two would be that the access point. So if you're delivering product, do you have enough room to be able to back up, let's say an Orca truck versus a tanker? Knowing that you have the ability to do both of those and have that room to be able to work is going to be extremely important, because you don't want to get caught, thinking you can do one and you can't do the other. And then the third one would be to estimate your consumption. And then, from the consumption, then you would look at those three things, and then you would determine the correct capacity based off of those three. Those are the three kind of basic ways that I would go about sizing the Microbulk tank.
I think the real genesis when we looked at the Arctic Fox tank was to have a tank that was easy to install, had all the features that somebody would like to have, like telemetry. Again, easy to install. It's all pre-plumbed, easy to have it mounted, and at the same time, have it so it's very easy for operators to get to the components and make adjustments. You're looking to go to the strainer or any of these other kind of components are there and available, and have it so they could have the longevity in a customer as they're expanding. If you needed to put in additional vaporization, it's got ways to do that. And also have a complete unit where it's fast to blow down the pressure so the driver could come in, do his job, and take off. And then the key thing after that was it was fast to build pressure, which we were really proud about how fast the tank could build pressure. And then have the customer be delighted with the tank by one, the appearance and also the performance, and have redundancy and top quality products, not just any product, but top quality products on the tank. And that's really what was achieved with the Arctic Fox. And you look at the tank, it's a beautiful tank, and you'll never see another tank the same way after you do it. You'll see yourself in the tank, and it's just a fantastic piece of equipment and has a long-term investment from a distributor's perspective. What would you want to invest in? Something the customers love, something that looks great, has longevity. That's the kind of investment you want to have and performs, day in and day out, rock solid.
Well, great. Well, thank you both for your time today. And thank you, George. I'm so happy you got to join.
Hey, I got to tell you what, it's great to be on the High Pressure Podcast. Woo. It's great to be back. I got to tell you, I've just been 6 months, and I appreciate, Marie, you doing the different podcasts.
Yeah, well, I can't do the High Pressure Podcast. I can't do that. So
High Pressure Podcast.
Yeah, we need
with Marie Williams and George Ratermann.
Yes, I cannot do that. Okay. And probably good for everyone.
I learned that from Ed McMahon. So,
yeah. No, I don't know. That's not my generation. Anyways, well, thank you both. And we will see you on the next episode of the
High Pressure Podcast
with Marie Williams and
George Ratermann.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Greg. And thank you, Craig. That also is a hard thing to say. So Greg and Craig.
Greg and Craig.
Thanks for watching. Stay up to date with the latest news in the gas and welding industry by clicking on the subscribe button.
And check out one of our other videos to learn more. Find out more about Reliably Ratermann at rmiordered.com.